Castling is a special move that makes your king safer. You can tap and drag the king to g1, or you can tap the king and then tap the g1 square. Now let's look at queenside castling. This time, move your king to c1. Whether you castle to the king side or the queen side, your king always moves 2 spaces while your rook swings around to the other side of the king. Before you can castle, you must first move your pieces out of the way. This is called development. Develop your knight to f3. Before you can castle, you must first move your pieces out of the way. This is called development. Develop your knight to f3. Now you can castle by moving your king to g1. That's it. Here, it is your bishop that prevents you from castling. Move your bishop to b5. Move your king to g1 and castle. Now your queen is in the way. Gently move her to d2 to prepare to castle queenside. Notice how nothing stands between your king and your rook on the queen side of the board. Now move your king to c1 to castle queenside. Now let's look at some examples of when you cannot castle. You may not castle with a rook that has already moved, so in this position you may not castle queenside because your rook has moved to c1. Move your king to g1 to castle kingside. We already know that you cannot castle with a rook if it has moved. The same is true for the king. Check my king by moving your rook to e1. The king may not pass through check while castling. Move your bishop to the square h6 to keep my king in the center. Your bishop prevents me from castling by attacking the f8 square. One way to make the king move is to force him to recapture a piece. Capture my bishop with yours. My queen prevents you from castling kingside because you cannot move your king into check. Of course. Luckily, you can castle in the other direction. Nicely done. Now you're ready for some practice on your own. You can immediately castle, but in which direction? You can castle in a single turn. Do you see how? You cannot castle because your king is in check. How can you resolve this? You cannot castle because your king is in check. How can you resolve this? If you move your king, you will never be... Again, your king is in check. Block the check so that you can castle your king. Nice move. This blocks the check and attacks my bishop. You still cannot castle because you are in check by my bishop. How should you recapture? You still cannot castle because you are in check by my bishop. How should you recapture? A fine move. My rook prevents you from castling kingside, so your king will have to reside elsewhere. Any ideas? Your turn. You cannot castle kingside because you have already moved that rook. So, what should you do instead? Indeed. Now that we're both castled, that's an excellent square for your knight. I'm ready to castle now. Are you? That's it. Do you see how to prevent me from castling? Do you see how to prevent me from castling? Do you see how to prevent me from castling? This doesn't check my king. Try again and castle in the other direction. And now my king will be unable to castle for the remainder of the game. Do you see how to castle and check my king in a single turn?